Hello and welcome to this week's episode of John's Garage. This week we are taking a real survivor out for a journey. We're also going to meet the owner of this car and hear a few words from them as well. We're going to get on with it now, so let's jump in and let's go for a ride. Okay, so what are we looking at this week? Well, this week we're looking at 1985 Lincoln TownCar. Okay, now these were a livery special, Lincoln of course being a Ford brand, so this is really a parts bin special in that regard. But being it's the Lincoln model, that means it's a higher up spec, it means it's going to have the most comfortable seats, best technology, best engine available at the time, and of course the best platform as well. Now, this particular car was coming right out of the tail end of the Malaise era, I suppose an era in American automotive design which was marked by indifference to progress, indifference to design, indifference to the consumer, and so on and so forth. And that arose during the 1960s, 1970s, especially when emission control and engine output started to be limited, and automakers just didn't quite know how to manage all this and manage customer expectations. And also there was a little bit of disdain for the customer as well, in that they should just buy the product and be grateful that they're getting it. Now, what have we got in with this one? Well, it's a 5-litre V8, or actually Ford said it was a 5-litre V8. It was actually a 4.9-litre V8 under the bonnet. Produces about 130 horsepower, and it is a carbureted model, and that is an important point with one of these. So if you were to buy one of these, that can be uprated. Service parts for these, very simple, very cheap to buy. Even repair parts, repair kits, all that stuff is easy to get, very, very cheap, and all the stuff is available online. Worth mentioning as well, it is body on frame, which means that you can do a huge amount of repairs yourself. There's a huge amount of space, but I suppose it does handle a little bit like an old Jeep and so on and so forth. Plenty of power though in the engine, as I say, plenty of power out of the auto box in it. Now, one thing which this car no longer has, but would have had when it left the factory, was a vinyl wrapped roof. That was taken away, as when the owner acquired it, it was maybe just gone a bit too tatty and it wasn't repairable. Okay, so anyway, let's have a little jump under the bonnet and jump inside the car, then we'll take it off for a drive. All right, see you in a minute, folks. Okay, so let's have a little look under the bonnet of this car. So under here we have what's badged as a 5.0 V8. It's actually a 4.9 litre. It's a carbureted V8 as well. Now that's great for any owners of these cars. They're easily modified, easily tuned. You can get a hell of a lot more power out of it than that left the factory. Now when it did leave the factory, it had about 130 horsepower, give or take. Plenty of torque though, so it feels like a lot faster. It feels a lot faster than it is actually to drive. Now, a couple of the benefits of having one of these cars, one of these engines. First of all, they're highly tunable. Second of all, parts availability is insane. Everything can be gotten for this. There's no problem getting any parts, keeping a car like this on the road, and even doing it on the cheap. None of this stuff is expensive. It's real common everyday parts. Essentially, things like this are the Toyota Corolla of the US, okay? Now, worth also mentioning as well is the huge amount of space for working on this car. So if you are an amateur mechanic, it's very, very easy to get your fingers dirty here with this. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And of course, the other thing is, it's all Motorcraft Ford parts. So again, very service to cheap, but I've already mentioned that. Now, just to show you and to illustrate to you, the engine ends here, the auxiliary parts for the engine, I should say. The bumper's way out here, like that's at least 2-3 foot. Okay, so it's huge. What else is worth mentioning in under here? Well, everything is bolt off, bolt on. Second of all, it's a separate body on frame chassis, which means you can remove absolutely everything up here, including, amazingly, the plastic rubber wing liners, and the engine and car will still drive, okay? It still drives, very simple to do all of that. And of course, if you're out and about in this and you get a bit tired, well, you can just sit in the bumper and chill out. And that relaxing, lovely soft suspension, it's like sitting on your couch at home. As I said, access is great, everything bolts off, everything pops off. The bumper, the owner tells me, is attached directly onto the frame, and the reason being is if you needed to nudge start somebody else, or somebody needed to give you a bit of a nudge, you can just nudge the bumpers, and that's why the rubber overriders are there. I don't know if that's true, but it's amazing to hear it anyway. As I said, or I didn't say yet, bonnet strut over there has failed, so we're using this stick here, and I'm risking my life putting my head under here because this bonnet weighs a ton if it was to come down on top of me. Other than that, service intervals are really long on these cars. These were designed as a livery car, so commercial vehicle, a work vehicle, so it has long service intervals with that in mind, that people will be using these for work. Now this particular one hasn't been cut and stretched, which at this stage is nearly unusual, but that's what they were designed for, was chauffeuring around and looking after people. Of course, Lincoln being Ford's luxury brand as well, which means everything under here had a touch of class, including a massive air conditioning unit and a very, very easy to access heater matrix if you needed to change it, but a very effective heater, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. And that's it. Let's jump inside and have a look in there. Okay, folks, you're very welcome to the interior of this Lincoln TownCar, this 80s car. Now, of course, Lincoln were one of the premier brands of the Ford Motor Company. They were their luxury division. I suppose in modern terms, if we were to look at the Volkswagen Audi group, we'd be looking at the likes of Audi, okay? With that in mind, these seats are incredibly plush. Crushed velour, very soft cushioning, lovely big chunky armrest. This is the kind of thing you could drive all day. Also, the sense of space up here is massive. Huge glove box. Fortunately, the lock is maybe missing. Let's say it's gone off to Guantanamo Bay for a week. But a huge amount of other features. Like if you think about 1985 in Ireland, take it, you know, standard luxury car here, maybe a Mercedes, something like that. It didn't have half the stuff this car has. So we have a switch here to raise the antenna up and down, the aerial basically. We have automatic climate control. Again, slider switches on these. What else do we have? Lovely wood trim dashboard. Finest plastic trees. I think they're plastic walnut trees. Very nice though indeed. Lovely big air vents all round, okay. No gear stick, no space taken up with that. We have a good column shifter here. What else do we have? We have intermittent wash wipe. We have indicator stalks. We have, I suppose, a primitive warning system. You have warning lights for your washer, your brakes, your doors. Warns you to check your engine lights, fasten your seatbelts, low fuel oil and amp meter as well as that. Of course, this is pretty modern in that it's also an unleaded fuel only car. All right, so it wasn't running unleaded petrol. What else do we have? We have cruise control. We have height and tilt adjustment on the steering wheel. We have power windows all around. We have electric driver's seat. We have power. I don't think they're power door mirrors, but they are controlled off a toggle as well. Big, massive, chunky light switch, and so on and so forth. And of course, more crushed velour on the door, vanity lights, chrome fittings, everything like that. Okay, so I suppose really what Lincoln were aiming for here was the luxury market. Now, this car came at the tail end of the malaise era, an era in which American car design, it got very lazy, we'll put it like that. There wasn't much development, there wasn't much pushing out the boat and so on and so forth. It was what it was. And I suppose the styling of this car reflects that. It's big, it's square, it's imposing, but in some ways it's unimaginative. Now, in other ways, this car was actually revolutionary for Lincoln. So number one, it was the first car not to have a chrome strip that ran the length of the car. Number two, it was the shortest Lincoln ever made, which was therefore meant to make it more fuel efficient. Now, we're talking 5-litre V8 in fuel efficiency. I'm not entirely sure how fuel efficient it was, but it was the smallest Lincoln up to that point. It's built on the Panther chassis, which ultimately went on to live out its days up to 2011. I think it was 2011, somewhere around there, under the Ford Crown Victoria was the last car. And of course, we'd know that in Ireland mainly as a police car used in the States. It would be in all the films and stuff like that. But it's the same chassis underneath that. So that also was a body-on-frame chassis, again with a similar engine up front. And of course, power output, refinements and so on and so forth were brought about over time. Now, these cars are known as being incredibly strong. Okay, that chassis is incredibly strong. They would have been used a lot in destruction derbies and so on and so forth for that very reason. Okay, now actually just point out that deep shag carpet as well. Okay, shag pile carpet. So again, it's majoring on comfort, it's majoring on luxury. I know this particular one may have seen better days, but it's still amazing to see it here on an Irish plate. It's very unusual for us to see something like that. So let's have a little look around the car. We'll take a little drive of it as well. Okay, so one of the things which has always amazed me about American cars is the complete ineptitude of use of interior space. But I have to say, sitting in the back of this Lincoln, it's actually not the worst offender of this. Okay, so you have good legroom. loads of shoulder and arm space as well. Seats are incredibly well quilted. I'm not even going to say padded, it's quilted. They're very soft, but it is a massive trip back to the mid-80s America here with this car. So we got brown crushed velour, brown shag pile carpet, brown plastic trim, brown roof lining. It's very, very 1980s. And for all those who remember the 1980s as being colourful, forget it, okay? You remember it as being brown. That's what it was, all right? Now, sitting back here, it gives me an even greater appreciation of the glass space that's in this car. Huge windscreen, huge side windows, lovely quarter lights. You can actually see quite a bit out of this car. One of the touches I do like, and I don't know whether you can show it up on camera or not, is the Lincoln insignia stitched into the seats. I think is quite nice. You also have power windows, power locks. I should have mentioned those earlier, and also light switches here as well, just to give you a greater view at night time. Okay. Other than that, beautiful car, beautiful place to sit. This particular one is well used, well loved, as you can probably see, but the owner really appreciates it and really enjoys their use of it, which is great to see. Of course, with any car, this is a survivor. I wouldn't say it's a garage queen by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly used and enjoyed, and that's, in my book, that's worth $1 million. Okay, so I'm going to be boss hog for a moment. I'm going to jump out of here and run around the car.
So Roy, do you want to tell us a little bit about your interest in American cars?
Well, it stems back from my youth. My father had an American car back in the late 60s, and that's where it came from. I drove it from the highway in back to Tumivara one night. I was only 8 years of age. It was officially the biggest car in Ireland at the time. It was a 7.5 litre Buick. The town car, I only found this much of it sticking out of a ditch in Limerick when I was driving a lorry. It was the sun caught the reflection of the chrome, and it took a long, maybe 2.5 years of probe and trying to find out who owned it, and then to get the permission to look at it and go in. Myself and son gave 2.5 hours with bill hooks trying to get at it. And we eventually got it out and eventually bought it. But it gave a lot of years sitting in the docks in Cork, I think. Or down in Cork, sorry. Before it ended up in where I found it. It came into Ireland in 95. There's papers in the glove box of when she was imported in 95. A wedding crowd in Dublin bought it. And they went burst. And it was sold to a crowd in Cork and they never used it. And it ended up in Limerick, where I found it. And the man bought it with the intentions of doing it up, and the wife didn't know about it, and then the marriage broke down, and it was kind of hidden then for a while, and he forgot about it then. So that's how I found out about it. Mechanically, parts are very cheap. There, to say specifically, that light there, lead broke there one day in Toom. $280, or €280 for that lamp. But having said that, I got no brake caliper delivered to my door from the States for €25, brand new. So because they're all mechanical parts are interchangeable. There's only what's specific to that model is expensive. Like a full engine rebuild kit for that car is about $300, which is about €500. That includes everything in the engine. No, very easy. The heater matrix went on that. And looking at the size of the car, I thought it was going to be a full day's work. I had the heater matrix out in 25 minutes. Everything is designed, what we can figure out, everything is designed for a 16-year-old girl to work on. These cars you see them on all the films in the garage of the house, son working on with cars jacked up. That's exactly what they were on. Everything is simplicity in them. A double take, a lot of the time. And some people you'd see them walking on the footpath, pretending not to see you. But if you look at them in the mirror, they'll walk into poles and everything. They're trying to turn around them as soon as you pass. They walk into poles and trip over people and everything. That's just great fun to see that reaction. It is. Just basically, we don't go to pubs anymore, so it's our social side of it. And like I said, going out, just meeting the people, get the reaction of people just coming over to talk to you about the car, all of that. It's a great way of meeting people. The social side is very good in that end of it. And like meeting other club members then as well can be very helpful.
This week we are driving a 1985 Lincoln TownCar, and it's effortless. Literally one whoop, it bounces along the road. So what have we got here? We have a 5 litre or 4.9 litre V8, Ford Motor Company, Lincoln TownCar, and this would have been one of from their livery range of cars, which means long service intervals, extremely high quality build. It's built for the likes of chauffeur drivers, police drivers, all of those different ones, fleet sales essentially, which means longevity was what Ford had in mind. Now, what can I say about this car? Well, at low speeds it feels quite sprightly. As you move up the speeds, well, it's not quite as sprightly as you'd think with a 5-litre V8, but what I would say is it's absolutely effortless. You could drive something like this every single day of the week for hours on end and still get out and feeling fresh. Now, given that this particular one is the Lincoln, it means it comes with lots of nice extras, chrome finishers, climate control. We have power windows all around, power locks, good strong brakes, nice alloy wheels, and so on and so forth. So it would have been top of the range, and we're cruising around 55 right now, which would have been the top speed mandated across a number of different states in America back when this car was current. Now, at the end of the bonnet, and it is a big bonnet, you have the Lincoln Star, okay, which is a nice little growler on the grille down there. Now, just to say, this particular version of the Lincoln was kind of when Ford and Lincoln and the American market, I suppose in general, started to downsize from its full-size range of cars to smaller cars. They were trying to make things more economical. So this is a little bit narrower and a little bit shorter than the type of cars that would have went before. But it's also a Mark I town car as well, okay? So what would have happened with these, given it was a Mark I, it was built on the Panther chassis, which was a very adaptable chassis, so that could be split in two, as well as the body, and stretched out to make limousines. And an awful lot of these ended up going into the livery or chauffeur driven market, okay? Now, what else can I tell you? Well, the owner of this car is very proud of it. They found it up in County Limerick, if I'm not mistaken. Hadn't been driven in a number of years, was originally imported to Ireland to be used as a wedding car, but for one reason or another, it didn't get to be used as that. Now, I have to say, driving this car, it does lean when you brake, all right, and it's quite wide, so I'm just being very conscious of not mounting any curbs here. It's very smooth, exceptionally smooth, almost Citroen-esque, but of course it's on big leaf spring suspension, live rear axle, and so on and so forth. Tiny steering wheel though, considering the size of the car. Overall, the owner uses this car very, very regularly, takes it all over the country. It's a little bit dog-eared in places, but you know what, it doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is it's body on frame, okay? The frame of this car is absolutely 100%. Body on the car, a little bit warm, but it kind of adds to the character of the car, to be honest with you. Everything works as you'd expect, apart from the lock here on this. And as I say, you can see I'm not even steering the car, just have my elbow rest or my wrist resting on it, and that's doing all the work, and it doesn't need any more than that. Now, having said that, I reckon if you were driving this in a bumpy road, you might feel a little bit seasick pretty quick, or if you were to stamp on the brakes, I've got my seatbelt on just in case I have to, because you shoot straight through the windscreen. That is how soft the suspension is in this car. Lovely finish on the inside as well, lovely period finish, I suppose. As I say, best plastic walnut trees in America. Big square dials, everything's easy to see within easy reach of the driver. Of course, this is all about comfort for the driver and comfort for the passenger. It's not a sports car. It doesn't even try to be a sports car or anything like that, because that's just not what it's about. It's just about comfort, reliability, longevity, and of course, what would have been at the time seen as American ingenuity, all right? But a lovely car nonetheless, and I'm really, really happy the owner has taken their time to allow us to come and have a look at this car and to take a drive in it and to experience, I suppose, mid-1980s Americana for what it is and what it represents. Big, strong, powerful, and a pump. But anyway, that's it for this week, folks. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, share the channel, and let me know what you think of this tail end of the Malaise era American Lincoln Town Car from the FOMO Co. All right, thank you all very much. We'll talk to you all again very, very soon.